Vue. No hype intro this time, just a solid glad you are here, because this meetup is not about flashy branding or algorithms, it's about practical conversations that actually help you to ship better software. I'm Pavel from Epicmax. You might know us as a team behind Vuestic UI, our open source Vue 3 component framework. We built it because we are tired of hacking UI libraries and that didn't fit our style, scale, or brain. So we made our own. And spoiler, you're more than welcome to use it, fork it, or start it out of moral support. Here we have a lineup for you tonight. So our agenda is, first one would be Faris Aziz, staff software engineer at Smallpdf, and talk from fragile to future-proof, solving web monetization chaos with payment systems that scale. Payments, edge cases, infrastructure that grows with you. Faris will unpack the thinking behind systems that survive scale. So the next one would be Alfonso Graziano, tech lead at Nearform, with his talk from senior engineer to tech lead, close the gap and grow in the role. What happens after senior? Let's talk leadership beyond titles. Alfonso will share a practical perspective on leveling up. And the last but not least will be Yauheni Prakopchyk, our CTO at Epicmax, with his granular update to Vue 3 for big projects. A lot of teams are still sitting on Vue 2 code bases, and Yauheni walks us through how to upgrade piece by piece. No big bang rewrite required. So I think we can start. And the first one, as I said, would be Faris Aziz. I hope I pronounced everything right. So hello, Faris. Nice to see you there. As I said,
thank you very much.
Faris is front-end engineer at Smallpdf. He's also mentor, conference speaker, and workshop instructor, specialized in Next.js, React, TS.js, front-end architecture, and engineering leadership, and also co-founder of Zurich.js. So again, nice to see you there, Faris, and I'm passing mic to you.
Thank you very much. I tried as hard as I could to break the character count on the LinkedIn header, essentially, by putting that many bullet points down. But I appreciate the intro. I'm just going to switch to sharing over my screen, and we're going to dig into the world of making money. Cool. Can everyone see my screen? The typical question we have at the start of online meetings. Thumbs up. Fantastic, and the fireworks have begun. So thank you everyone for your attention after a long work day. I know it's hard to jump into yet another call, but we're going to be talking about my favorite subject today, which is from fragile to future-proof, solving web monetization chaos with payment systems at scale, with a really cool demo at the end around how we integrate this at Smallpdf. But a lot of this terminology and a lot of the stuff we're going to be exploring is agnostic to, for example, particular tech stacks. It's more of an architecture and a financial thought process, and something that's kind of being shown in the front-end space, and a topic that's predominantly actually addressed more in the back-end space. I start this actually by asking a question. Since we're kind of like an intimate meetup around 15 people, you can use the thumbs up or thumbs down. Has anyone here used Revolut before or heard of it? One thumbs up, two thumbs up. Okay, fantastic. So if you ever used Revolut before, you'll know that most of us use it because it's avoiding all the credit card fees that we would normally have in having exchange rates. And it's super cheap to be able to go and use Revolut. And if I want to switch from Swiss francs to euros, I don't have to pay the exchange fee that's decided by Visa or MasterCard. And we all want to save money, so that's a fantastic thing to do. And we can then use the exact same exchange rate as whatever you search up the exchange rate is in Google. And so you may wonder, how is that actually achieved? And under the hood, Revolut uses something called liquidity pooling. And so they have two bank accounts, or even one large bank account segregated in two. And they have a large pool of, let's say, Swiss francs, and they have a large pool of euros. And if I want to take Swiss francs and I want to move it over to euros, it's not actually going to make that foreign exchange transaction take place. In most scenarios to save money, what it's going to do is it's going to find somebody else that's trying to make a transaction from euros to Swiss francs, match that, and switch the numbers in the accounts. And that uses a virtual banking system and reference accounts to be able to take these large pools of bank accounts and reference them to individuals. So there may be 100,000 Swiss francs in one account, but it's segregated by how much does Faris own, how much does person B own. And that's how it kind of works to be able to save money in making those transactions. And so why do I start the talk with that? The whole point is money is not easy to move around. And especially when you're building a platform or an application, you want to plug it into Stripe, and you're only charging in euros, for example, but now want to expand to the US and other territories, you start to find a lot of complexities that's integrating tools like Stripe initially solve for. But the bigger and bigger your platform gets and the more global markets you tap into, it starts to get really complicated. And so I know there was already a little bit of an intro, but more about my stuff. Yes, I am a staff front-end engineer at Smallpdf. I was previously an engineering manager at a fintech called Navro. So I've also built payment curation layers and also looked into the world of payment orchestration layers. So all these things before I've kind of helped build at the API level, and then also kind of building it into the front-end level. I love all things monetization and growth. I've also previously worked in the connected TV industry, fitness tech industry, and love engineering leadership, web performance, and all things Raycast. I love developing some open source extensions of Raycast. If you don't use it, I definitely recommend checking it out. So I also host Zurich.js. If you're ever in the Swiss-German region, do pass by. We have monthly meetups, and they're a lot of fun. But beyond that, we want to get into a little bit of what are the struggles with monetization when it comes to accepting money into your platform when you build a SaaS business. And so we alluded to a little bit to that initially with the whole Revolut thing, where you want to be able to support and work with multiple currencies. Now that travel is so accessible, you seldom are going to be using the currency of your base home country, so you're going to be subjected to FX fees. Especially if you want to build a product that's going to be working in every single country, is not isolated to, let's say, just the United Kingdom. You want to be able to support paying in your local currency. If I live in Switzerland, I want to pay in Swiss francs. I don't want to pay in British pounds. I want to pay in the currency that I earn in. So this is something that really helps users convert, and we want to be able to provide that. And a lot of these payment providers do that. But there's something even beyond providing just localized currencies as something that's a benefit for users. It's also the right payment methods. Now, if you ever travel to other countries, I just came back from Thailand a couple of days ago. Over there, it's actually quite difficult to make payments with credit cards. Everyone uses a QR code payment system, which you need a local bank for. And it's a real pain to navigate as a foreigner because I don't know how to pay into that system. And so I have to take out cash, and it makes it really painful because then I get charged, cash fees at the ATM, and I'm spending 5-6 euros every time I take out cash. It's adding friction to that process. And just like that friction I experienced in person, that's the same friction you could be experiencing online when using a platform. So there are localized payment methods that are really predominant in certain regions. Like in Brazil, you have Pix bank transfers. In India, you have UPI, Unified Payments Interface. Netherlands, Ideal Online Banking. In Switzerland, you have a system called Twint. You've probably never heard of Twint, but that's mostly what every single Swiss person uses over here. And so we all have these payment methods that are natively integrated to the countries that we use. And so that's what we want to be able to use to pay for our online services. And gateways like Stripe don't necessarily service all of those. And so we'll explore about how to adapt this into our platforms with different techniques. But there's more than just the problem around currency localization. There's also regulation and compliance. When it comes to the world of finance, you have to abide by a lot of rules. You have EMI licenses in place, financial institutions that dictate countries that you're allowed to operate in or not allowed to operate in. And so if, for example, there's any war-like situation going on in particular countries, you're restricted on being able to transact through those countries. And so you need to be able to very quickly adapt and say, I'm no longer allowed to operate in country X, so I need to shut off all transactions in country X. For some teams, because their systems are so tightly integrated, it can be very complicated to untangle that and restrict something for just a particular country. So let's say if there's an issue transacting in Switzerland is sanctioned tomorrow, maybe just all payments will start to fail in Switzerland at the gateway level or the payment provider level rather than at the platform level, which is what one would normally want. Because if you then start processing payments at the provider level through sanctioned countries, you maybe, for example, get thrown off your provider. And if you're thrown off the provider, it's very hard to get back into a good standing. So those are things you generally don't want to do. Then sometimes you need local business entities. So to be able to have unified payments in India, you actually need an entity in India. If I have a company based in Switzerland, I can't just go travel to India the next day and start up a company over there to be able to process payments. So being able to pool into networks or payment networks that actually have entities in other areas can be really helpful for being able to grow into those regions, along with being able to adapt to all these different compliance regulations across different countries. The other thing is also chargebacks and disputes, things that go wrong once transactions have gone in place. And then if customers dispute them, sometimes those dispute rates can cause you to be thrown off your provider. So if people are paying through your platform and making a lot of subscriptions, but then they go to their bank and it's like, I want to cut the payment. I don't want this company to be able to pay, take money away from me anymore. Then let's say Stripe is going to say, hey, we're having issues. We're going to have to refund customers. You get charged for disputes, and then you get kicked off. So being able to manage that too is sometimes, helps alleviate business risks. Then you also have the subject of reliability and uptime. If you are like honed in and tied down to one provider, and again, let's take this example, which is the predominant provider, Stripe. They had like 3 partial outages and 10 maintenance slots in the last few months. And while Stripe does boast a 5.9 availability, so 99.999% availability, which is around 5 to 6 minutes of allowed failure per year, that doesn't mean that partial outages can't affect certain payment routes or payment methods. So you may have Stripe that's functioning end-to-end, but Alipay in China isn't working. And so sometimes partial outages can cause issues, and having the ability to, again, not rely on a single provider can be very helpful here. And so that brings us kind of to the topic of payment orchestration, which kind of works like air traffic control for payments by directing transactions by the best route for cost, speed, and reliability. So starts to break down this reliance on singular providers, and we're kind of looking at what that means. The idea is that it's a centralized system that manages multiple payment providers. One payment provider we talked about a lot is Stripe, but other ones are Revolut. Another one is Braintree. Another one is Aziz. There are many companies, many payment providers that allow you to plug into their systems, that allow you to, process the same type of payments as all of them are allowed to. So let's say I don't just have to process credit card payments through Stripe. Adyen also supports credit card payments. Braintree does too. So for the same payment method, you have multiple ways to resolve that payment. Then you can also choose which gateway to use based on success rate, region, and cost. So let's say there is a high fee for processing something with Adyen. Maybe you want to then route it through Revolut instead to be able to process that payment. And so it also then ties into the subject of downtime, where if one payment method, not just the gateway, but one method is down for a particular provider, you can then navigate and switch providers to one that has a matching payment method and still process payments through. So all of that ties into a system that's able to scale into multiple markets and withstand a lot of different situations that generally a business that works at a global scale can get into when it comes to the whole financial markets. And then lastly, mixing and matching payment providers also allows you to access a larger pool of payment methods, which have higher success rates in certain countries. And if you look at a particular example of this, if I compare Revolut and Stripe as payment providers, you can see that there are cases that these providers, by combining them, allow you to expand into regions that you previously wouldn't have been able to. So Stripe and Revolut function both in the United Kingdom and France. But if you were to decide and had both of those plugged in, which one you would go for, you potentially go for Revolut for processing euro transactions or British pound transactions because they have a much lower fee than Stripe does. Then at the same time, Stripe doesn't support payments through Cyprus and Estonia. So if you were just plugged into that singular payment provider, you'd have no choice and you wouldn't be able to expand into those markets. You can't tap into places where you may have a user base that you want to be able to use your platform. And so over there, you'd have no choice but to use Revolut if you were plugged into 2 of them. Same for Stripe. Revolut only works in the European region. And so if you want to expand to the US and Canada, you wouldn't be able to do that if you're singularly just plugged into Revolut. Even though, let's say, we're all processing transactions through credit card, Your user just cares about being able to process it in whatever country they choose. They don't care about the underlying technology that's going to process that. So creating an accessible payment system is really important because it allows me to transact in whatever country I want to. And then when I have the option of multiple providers per country, I can then optimize for the business case and reduce my fees. And that's incredibly, incredibly useful at a very large scale. And we'll see from a technological perspective, how does one integrate something like this? In a typical checkout flow, a user may open their checkout, and what we would do is we would initialize an orchestration layer, whether you want this to be a React hook or some sort of a singleton or some function, however you want to design this architecturally, but you're going to initialize something called an orchestration layer. This orchestration layer will typically on the front-end side consume a global state and a rules configuration. This global state, whether it's Redux or whatever you want to use as your global state management system, may contain information about the user's country, A/B test segmentations. Maybe in Switzerland, you're testing US dollars versus Swiss francs and which converts better. And also the list of currencies that you want to support in a particular jurisdiction. Then it goes through a decision tree and takes the rules configuration that you put in place, a static set of rules that you've defined with your product team, for example, and decides based on the state and the rules, what are my series of payment providers organized from most ideal to least ideal that I can use. It doesn't just pick a singular one, it picks an optimal gateway and a backup gateway. So in this case, let's say I want to be able to process a transaction in China using Chinese yuan. Adyen is only giving me credit card as an option, but it does allow me to process in localized currency like Chinese yuan. So that is a good option as a payment gateway, but Stripe, for example, allows me to process in Chinese yuan and lets me process in Alipay, which is a more optimal payment method. And so Stripe would become the dominant payment method that the payment orchestration system would tell me that it would like to use. And let's say Stripe has a downtime right now and isn't functioning, then it can go to the backup gateway like Adyen. And so you have multiple options from most ideal to least ideal to be able to process the transaction. And then in worst case scenario, let's say Revolut, you're able to process through credit card, and then you're subject to FX fees because it only supports USD. But in this way, you're not just resolving to a singular gateway, you're resolving to multiple in an ordered list. Once it's selected, whatever gateway is currently up and functioning and is most optimal, you render the appropriate payment methods, you confirm a subscription or purchase, and then it runs through an adapter layer because Stripe's APIs are very different to Revolut's APIs. So what you do is you create your system in a generic manner where it only cares that I'm creating a payment or creating a transaction, and it runs through an adapter to adapt the data structure to meet whatever the payment provider's native data structure is. And so these adapters are a really important part because you don't want to now have spaghetti code where you're mixing and matching all the different structures and terminologies that these SDKs use to process payments. And so what this may look like in a React application is that if you've got multiple payment providers, you're now squishing all these context providers and wrapping your checkout element in that. And this can get a lot of bloat really quickly. If you're loading the bundle of all of these context providers, you're going to land yourself in a situation where you're tripling or quadrupling your bloat, which is really unideal. And so then you end up wanting to create with a payment orchestration system a set of lazy loaded providers where based on the rules and configurations, it then decides which provider to load or lazy load, and then renders that provider for your checkout. So if we take the scenario of wanting to render this in China using Chinese yuan, and you have just a singular payment orchestration context provider, under the hood, it would figure out that Stripe is what I need to process this payment, and it would render the appropriate context provider under the hood. This way, avoiding having to deal with multiple of them. If we look at the example of having to process a checkout, again, all these SDKs come with their own hooks. So like use Stripe and use Revolut. And you now don't want to land in this mess where you have switch cases or large if statements where you're like, oh, are we using Stripe? Then process it this way. If we're using Adyen, process it this way. You want to abstract all of that stuff because your system only cares about making a payment. It doesn't care what's making the payment. And you'll see in the code, there's a little bit of these discrepancies in terms of the terminology where Stripe calls currency, Adyen calls it currency code, and then Revolut calls it currency type, for example. And so you want to be able to harmonize that all into singular APIs, like maybe a use payment orchestrator hook that just processes the payment under the hood, handles the adapting to be able to send it down to the right payment provider. And so if we look a little bit at the rules configuration for this, being able to configure a gateway looks like a little bit like SQL in the sense that you can define rules for what to select and how to select which gateway you want to use. And this functions in this particular definition using an enablement criteria. And so we've defined over here Stripe as a gateway, and it's an enablement criteria you can define for countries, A/B test experiments, and currencies, whether to run it only in China or in China. And you can define SQL-like rules for it to decide under what conditions to mix and match and hone in on what the most optimal gateway is. So for example, here, we only want to operate Stripe in China only if an experiment called Stripe Gateway is enabled, and we don't care what currency is being used. Then in the array of payment methods, we define Alipay and only use Alipay if there's China. If we want to now keep Stripe and add a brand new payment method, how simple is that? And that's as simple as just adding 4 to 5 lines of code. And if you want to enable PayPal, you just define PayPal as a payment method. You say you want to enable it for the US, and you add the US to the country's enablement criteria, and automatically under the hood, a payment gateway system should be able to render the appropriate payment method. And so by creating this generic system and being able to define these configurations this way, I could also copy and paste this, switch the configuration for Adyen, and then also decide which payment methods I want to render for Adyen. So it makes it super easy. In the same way, if I want to disable PayPal, I just have to remove these 4 or 5 lines of code, and it no longer will function with Stripe. And so it makes it really easy to be able to deal with scenarios where, with the financial markets always evolving and having countries that come into sanction and onto sanction lists, being able to take off a country off the list in a singular line of code makes your business really low risk. And so if we take a little bit of case study of a 10 million ARR SaaS, you could kind of estimate that if it's running 24/7, 365, it's making around about $1,140 per hour. If we take around about a 99.9% availability of your payment, if you're stuck with one payment provider, that's around about 8 hours and 41 minutes of downtime with a potential loss of like $10,000 per year. Maybe not the biggest amount. If you're making 10 million a year, 10,000 isn't the biggest amount. But then if you look on the upside of having the optimized payment methods and having multiple gateways, so that let's say in Brazil, you're able to use Pix payments, you actually would increase the conversion rate by 5 to 15% and even avoid high credit card fees. So you're not even covering the potential loss of money, you're increasing the uplift of money. And the more your business makes, the more you're able to save. And so this has a compounding effect over time. And so it's not because it works in 2 ways, you're able to find yourself in a situation where even if you split, let's say your payments using Revolut Pay and Stripe, and where we previously saw Revolut has a fee of around about 1% and Stripe had a fee of around 2.9%, just using Revolut for all your EEA payments in a 10 million ARR scenario could save you around $76,000 per year. So if you add that all up together, maybe your business is saving or even adding to its revenue around about $200,000-300,000. And that's no small number, because that probably covers the salaries of 2 or 3 senior developers. So time to demo this and actually show how this works in the world of Smallpdf. So we actually have this system integrated into our platform. And if you try to now create a free trial or a subscription on our platform, you'll see that if I'm based in the UK, GB, we're initially loading Recurly as an option and being able to process your payment via PayPal and credit card. And if you go and you switch to China and you reload the entire platform, again, we're still loading Recurly, but if you go into an experiment and you switch an A/B test onto Stripe Gateway, you actually now switch to using Stripe under the hood. And because the system dynamically decides, lazy loads which provider to use, every single time we're not increasing the bundle bloat, we're loading what we need just when we need it. If we look again in this scenario, we're switching again this time to Germany. In Germany, they tend to use SEPA payments. You have direct debit as an option, being able to use your IBAN to process the payment. And so it's, again, rendering only what we need for the user in a particular country. If we go to India, under the hood, you'll still be paying with credit card, just like you were with Braintree and Recurly previously, but we're actually loading Adyen in this scenario because Adyen seems to have a higher success rate in the particular region. And so just because you're paying with one payment method, it doesn't mean that it has the same success rate across all the payment gateways. That's pretty much how it functions in the Smallpdf world. If I now go to the next slide, something that's really cool out of this, I talked a bit about bundle size. We previously at Smallpdf were using Adyen and Recurly at the same time and smushing all that bundle into one singular checkout system. And by creating this payment orchestration layer and even adding Stripe to that as a payment provider, we were able to drop the unit bundle size by 70% based on our dynamic loading system that we created. And so this can have even in itself an increased conversion rate based on your UI loading a lot faster because it's a lot more responsive. And in third world regions where you have 3G networks or 4G networks with lower bandwidths, loading all that client-side JavaScript and running it is actually going to be able to allow users to have a much better experience when in terms of processing their payments. They don't have to wait for that stuff to load. That's pretty much it. Thank you for your time and attention. If you have any questions, more than welcome to ask them.
Well, yeah, thank you, Faris. That is really huge amount of information I have to put in my head. But yeah, that was really informative and nice. Thank you. I remind you guys that you can put your questions in the chat or just ask the speaker at the end of his speech, and we'll try to answer the question.
Cool. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Faris. Okay, since we are lack of questions on this speech, I think we can move on and move to our next speaker, which is Alfonso Graziano. Nice to meet you, Alfonso, and let me a little bit introduce you to our audience. So Alfonso is a tech lead at Nearform, also AWS certified solutions architect and ML engineer. And in his free time, he is enjoying cooking, like for that, learning and spending quality time with loved ones. So I'm passing mic to you, Alfonso. Nice to see you.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. It's very nice to be here. I just wanted to say thanks again for the previous talk. It was very informative and very nice. Also, the slides were super interesting. So thanks a lot. I hope to reach you at some point in Zurich. So hopefully. All right. Shall I start the screen share? Is it fine?
Yeah, please do it.
Okay, sweet. Let me see. There we go. All right. So the topic that we are going to look into today is the story of an engineer that wants to become a tech lead, which is struggling a bit. So today we will hopefully guide this engineer through this role change a bit. First of all, before we start, hi again, everyone. I'm Alfonso. It's very nice to be here today. And if we are not connected yet on LinkedIn, and in case you would like to have a chat either on this topic or other topics after this talk, please, well, of course, in this case, I assume that you will not scan the QR code, but you can go on LinkedIn and find me. I'm more than happy to have a chat. Before we start, just couple of information about the company I work for. I'm a tech lead as Nearform. Nearform is a consultancy company. We mostly work in the JavaScript, Node.js space. We have been some of the core contributors to Node.js so far. We also have a lot of contributions in the React ecosystem and React Native ecosystem. So yeah, in case you are struggling with something related to JavaScript, you can reach out to Nearform. We are always happy to help and support. But Getting back to the topic that we have to discuss today, I've met in my career so far a lot of engineers that feel like Bob, which is the person on the left, which is a very strong senior engineer with a lot of skills. He's a very skilled individual contributor. Bob is very, very strong, but he's feeling that is missing something. So Bob would like to become a tech lead, but doesn't know yet how to do it. He can see that there are a lot of skills gap, visibility, and mindset gaps, and he's looking for a bit of an advice. So he doesn't know yet how to cross this gap. Before we start, let me give. I would like to give you my personal definition of what a senior engineer is. So that we define what is the starting point, then we define what is the target, and we try to understand how to fill this gap. So for me, a senior engineer is, well, first of all, is an experienced developer, right? Which is able not just to write code, but to design, build, and maintain complex software systems, while at the same time leading by example, not just with usual things, but with code quality, architecture, best practices, non-functional requirements, documentation, testing, everything that we can think of. So it's not just the person that does things, but also leads things. Also, for me, a senior engineer is someone who can take ownership of projects or features, slice of the project, then mentor junior engineers and support, generally speaking, other engineers, collaborate cross-functionally, so not just speaking the engineer language, but also speaking with designers, DevOps engineers, Q&A, business stakeholders, you name it. And that contributes to the technical strategy of the product, because we are not just writing code because it's fun. Well, of course, it's fun, but we are writing code to solve real-world problems and hopefully have an impact. Last but not least, beyond writing code, a senior engineer should be able to proactively identify problems, propose scalable solutions, whatever scalable means to you. It might be like numbers of users, reliability of the system, whatever, you name it, and help align the technical work with the business goals. Again, because we are not writing code in isolation, but we are in a context and we are trying to solve a business problem. At any time, by the way, I'm monitoring the chat here, so in case you have any question or something, please let me know. In case you're interested about what a senior engineer should be, there is a beautiful article by Luciano Mammino, which is a great architect, which is the definition of senior. In case you want to take a look, there is the link below. I think later on I'm also going to share the slides, but in case you want to look, definitely worth taking a look at this article. It's going to take around 30 minutes to look at it, but it clearly says what a senior engineer should be, what are like all the expectations, and it's going to help you also to grow in the role. So if you want to grow to a senior engineer role, just go for it. Now that we defined what a senior engineer is, at least for me, let's try to understand exactly what does a tech lead do. Because when I started to become a tech lead, I found out that you do a lot of things during the day and during the week, but you can define everything in 4 macro areas. So first of all, as a tech lead, you are engaging with business. You will have most probably almost daily conversations with the business side. So either product managers or business-related stakeholders. So you will have most probably a lot of communications with senior management. Then you will do a lot of reporting, and most importantly, you will be the technical point of contact for your team. So you will be like an interface. You can see yourself like a proxy between your team and the outside world. And then, of course, you are the peer to product owner, project managers. You will be the peer to other technical leads on other teams. So it's very interesting, that part of the job. Then, of course, you have to engage with the team, because we mentioned that we are interfaces, right, between the external world and the team. So in order to engage with the team, you are also shielding the team from what's outside. But you need to support people in the onboarding. You need to lead people. So it's going to depend a bit whether you are a line manager or not. But for example, in my case, I'm a line manager. Therefore, I need to help people to grow. if they want to grow and how they want to grow. And you are also supposed to lead those people toward a common goal. Then your goal is to be a facilitator. So you will facilitate that technical discussions and discussions in general. So every time there is a discussion around something, you're gonna be there to help and to facilitate things. Then we have the delivery risk, because at the end of the day, we still have to deliver software, right? Or whatever artifact that we are delivering. It might be, I don't know, a machine learning algorithm, it might be a design document, you name it, whatever. But we are in charge of the delivery. Therefore, we have to do things like risk mitigation. So every time that we can foresee a risk in something, we have to raise it. We do the managing of the tech debt, which, of course, everything that I'm saying is shared across the team, but you are the lead for that team, so you are the point of contact. Therefore, you will need to manage the tech debt. You will need to have a registry of all your RFPs during your project. You will need to have a lot of ADRs, which are architecture decision records. So you will need to manage all this stuff. And of course, reputation management, because you both have a reputation with the client, which hopefully it's going to be a nice reputation, and you also have a reputation with other teams. So you will need to juggle all these things together. And of course, you will need to help the team to prioritize things. So you will have most probably stakeholders asking you to do a lot of things at the same time, and you need to find a way to prioritize, which is sometimes interesting and sometimes fun. Last but not least, which is one of the parts of the job that I love more, is everything related to architecture, infrastructure, everything which is non-functional, which sometimes might be very, very interesting and complex, of course. So from tech debt to, well, you might do a bit of coding, hopefully. It really depends on the team. I saw tech leads doing coding every day. I saw tech leads done writing even a single line of code for 6 months. It really depends on the project and on the culture and on the context. And yeah, you are also responsible for the architecture. So every time you have a new piece of tech that you need to inject into your system, it's your responsibility to find the proper way to do so, which is also super, super interesting. And that's it. So that's a lot of things, right? It's incredible. If you want to look at this diagram, I basically steal it from the well-rounded techlead.dev, which is, by the way, super interesting as well, in case you want to take a look. Now, we discussed a few areas that you will need to cover, but there are some skills that you need to have and that you need to learn in order to become a successful tech lead. The first one is, well, as the name implies, it's technical leadership. So the first things that you will need to learn are system architecture, system design, trade-offs. So if you are a great software engineer and you want to become a tech lead, you will need to study quite a bit, everything related to system design, how to take a trade-off, how to design trade-offs also from a business perspective. So that is super interesting. Then scalability, which is related to system design, scalability, again, whatever it means for you. We discussed earlier about payments. It might be transactions per second, for example, you name it. Or, for example, the reliability of your system, 99.9, or whatever you need it. Technical vision, meaning that you need to foresee what's going to happen in the next 6 months up to 1 year. Usually when you are a senior engineer, you might have limited visibility on what's going to happen, meaning that you might work on your sprint, or you might have visibility on 2, up to 4, up to 6, up to 8 sprints if you are lucky. But as a technical lead, you need to think about, okay, this technical decision is going to backfire in 2 years. What's the difference between a tech lead and the CTO? Next question, we will look at it later, because there are a few differences also with other things like engineering manager, for example. We will look at it. And then, of course, last but not least, championing best practices across the stack. Next one, effective communication. I want to tell you this story because it's fun. I had a very nice colleague which told me, I don't want to become a tech lead. I hate talking with people. I hate dealing with people. I want to deal with machines because I can take a machine, I can do like this on the table. No one is going to blame me. Worst case scenario, I break my laptop. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fine. But I cannot do that with people. And then he added, unfortunately, which Yeah. Anyway, so the first thing that you will need to learn is speaking at the right level of details to the developers, PMs, designer, executives, because you will talk to a lot of different people. Therefore, you will need to learn how to talk to those people so that they understand what you're trying to say, which is related to create a shared understanding. So you will try to you will need to give the same message using different words to different people, which are gonna understand different things, which sometimes is super hard, but it's interesting as well how to do that. And then managing up with clarity, because you don't have just to manage your team, but you also have to manage up, meaning that you have to report to your manager, you have to report to some senior stakeholders usually. So managing up, it's one of the trade-offs. It's one of the things that you will learn. You will need to learn how to do it properly. Next one, execution and delivery. So everything related to sprint planning. You need to learn how to do tech debt and features, because you will have a lot of things, a lot of people asking you, I need this feature for tomorrow, I needed this last week, whatever. It's up to you to find the right balance between tech debt and feature pressure on the team, which of course is related to knowing when to say, no, we cannot do that. Or yes, of course, we are gonna implement this in 2 sprints. Or yes, we're gonna do it at some point. Or no, we're not gonna do it because of these reasons. So this is an interesting part of the job. And it's definitely not related to code. It's related to people and execution and how you deliver value, even when people are asking you to do something different. Next one is team enablement. As you are the tech lead, your main goal is to enable the team, to support the team, and to give them the right tools. So first of all, mentoring juniors, not just juniors, I would add people in general. Then leading things like design reviews, code reviews. So your goal is to give the team the right tools and unblock them in order to let them progress. You definitely don't want to become the single point of failure. Like you are in annual leave and people cannot take decisions. That's the wrong way. So you should give the team all the right tools so that they can take decisions. Last but not least, influence without authority, because you will need to influence a lot of things, from product decision to technical decision to stakeholders decision, but you don't have the authority to do that a lot of times. So you will need to do things like influencing the business based on the tech, influence the tech based on the business, and there will be a lot of dissent. People will ask you for different things, people will break the system, people will be unhappy, and you have to manage that. Now, we looked quickly about through a few things that you will need to learn, but there are also some interesting mindset shifts. So you don't just change what you do, you also change how you think. First one is success. Success is not what I'm doing, but it's a team metric. So your impact is not measured about how many PRs you build or about how many features you ship, but it's about how many value your team is producing. How to do so? Well, first of all, you can grow others, you can invest on others. Then you have to learn how to celebrate wins, because every team success needs to be highlighted and needs to be reported. And then your goal, one of your main goals is to unblock people. So every time you can see some friction, every time you can see something that can be removed, every time that something is making your team slower, it's your goal, it's your responsibility to take that roadblock and remove it so that the team can work faster and better. Next one, the hero trap, which is one of my favorite, and it's something that I truly struggled with. So when you are a senior engineer, you figure it out. When you're a tech lead, you cannot figure everything out. You need to be fast, but you cannot solve all your problems. You cannot solve the problems yourself. You need to help. You need to give the right people the right tools so that they can solve them. So the way I do it is to listen, emphasize, lead, and resolve. So first of all, you listen, you give the full attention to a person which came to you with a problem. I don't know, I'm stuck with this task for a couple of days. I have no idea what to do. First of all, you listen, you try to understand the context, you try to understand everything. Then you empathize with the person, because we are not machines, we are humans, right? Then you try to provide a direction, and you help the person to take action. And that's the framework I use, which is, in this case, in the case of the engineer which struggled for a couple of days on task, what I would say is, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Trust me, I've been stuck with these things in the past. If I were you, I would be like very stressed right now. Let's relax, let's come for a moment, we will figure it out together. That's what we will do from now on. So you lead towards a solution or an investigation, whatever. Next one, when I became a tech lead for the first time, I felt very, very, very unproductive, because I was feeling like I was working countless hours, but achieving nothing, like really nothing. I didn't open a PR, I didn't do like something which generated an artifact. So I was feeling, okay, I worked 10 hours, but what did I do today? What you have to understand is that the fact that your work and your everything that you did, the fact that it's not that visible doesn't mean that doesn't have impact. So you need to learn how to reframe your success. So your success is meaningful conversations, alignment. You need to prevent problems. That's how you measure your impact. Next one, from flow state to meeting Tetris, which means that when you're a senior engineer, usually, or in a normal state, you should have quite a bit of time, right? You should have all the time that you need to focus, do your work, and deliver what you have to deliver. When you become a manager, things become way more tricky, because people are starting to ask for your time, and you have to deal with that. So you will have a calendar which is something similar to what you have on the right on the screen right now, which is people are just creating meetings for you, which is complex to manage. So you will need to do things like time blocking. You will need to add busy slots. So you will need to learn how to deal with that. And there is a beautiful essay from Paul Graham, which is maker schedules and manager schedules. Again, look at it. It's like 5 minutes of reading. It's beautiful. Next one is, you don't need to know everything. Like when you're a manager, at least initially, I got a lot of questions from people, and I thought, okay, I should know all these answers. But then I continued to get new questions, and I eventually figured out I cannot know everything. So what I'm going to focus on is, okay, we're going to find the solution together. We are going to figure it out together. But I'm not supposed to know everything. I'm not supposed to know what is written a line 52 on that specific file. I have no idea. We can look it out together. I know that this is a talk about how to become a tech lead, but there are a lot of reasons to not become a tech lead. And if you find yourself into one of those, please don't become a tech lead. You will have a lot of other ways to grow. The first one is, you prefer depth over breadth. So when you're a tech lead, usually you are a bit more generalist, because you have to cover a lot of areas. We saw it earlier. You have to cover a lot of things, from reporting to delivery to risk mitigation, you name it. If you want to become a specialist in one specific field, maybe the tech lead is not the perfect role for you. Maybe you can become a great principal engineer. Next one, you just don't like people interaction, or like team interaction, or people issues. People will come to you with issues like, I hate my coworker, or I don't want to deal with this thing, or the team is going to have a lot of problems internally. So if you don't like that, if you don't like dealing with that, maybe the tech lead is not the perfect role for you. Next one, you don't want to be interrupted. You just want to stay in your focus zone. You love the focus. You love being in the zone for 4 hours in a row. You don't want to be interrupted. If you become a tech lead, trust me, people are going to write you, are going to help you, are going to ping you. They will need your help. They will need your support. You will need to jump on call a lot of times, mostly. So if you don't want that, if you don't want to be interrupted, if you don't like context switch, maybe that's not the perfect role for you. Next one is, well, maybe you're chasing the title without the mission. Maybe you just want to get more money, or you would like to have that title on LinkedIn, whatever. That's not the right way to approach it. If you just think to do it for the money, it's not worth doing it for the money. Trust me. I'm the living example that if you just do it for the money, it's not worth it. Because usually you don't earn that much more than a senior engineer. It depends on the company, of course, but if you just do it for the money, it's not worth it. Also, if you just do it for the title, it's definitely not worth it. You need to do it because you embrace the mission and you really enjoy what you're doing. But if you want to stay as an individual contributor, it's perfectly fine. I mean, in our industry, you can grow quite a bit. Even if you just stay as an individual contributor, you can become a senior, a principal engineer, a staff engineer, a distinguished engineer, a fellow, whatever you name it. It depends quite a bit on your company, but you can grow a lot. But if you really want to step into this role, you need to keep in mind that with great power comes great responsibility, because you will have the responsibility of the team, of the project, of managing expectations. So do it only if you really want to do it. I saw a question regarding what is the difference between tech lead and the CTO. In this slide, we're going to look at very briefly at the differences between the manager, the engineering manager, the staff engineer, and the tech lead. If you want to learn more about this, there is a beautiful book called The Software Engineer's Guidebook from the Pragmatic Engineer. This infographic is from that. It's not from the book, but it's from the newsletter. And so we can see that the tech lead is in the intersection of the building software part and the people management, while the engineering manager is usually more on the strategy and alignment. But again, this is very on the company and on the context. So if you're in a company, you might be a line manager if you're a tech lead. In some other companies, you are not, and you are not a line manager, so you don't have direct reports. You might have a lot of companies where you have all the three roles. So you have staff engineer, you have engineering manager, and then for each team you have the tech lead. That might happen as well. So again, you can take this as a generic guideline, but it really depends on the company. There is a question which I asked to myself, which I asked to my manager as well, and to a lot of other people, which is, okay, I am 25. I have no idea yet about what I want to do in the future. I have to work other 35 years or something. Do I really need to choose between becoming a technical person and a manager? And the answer has been, no, you don't. There is this article, which is the Engineering Manager Pendulum. Again, beautiful article. Go and check it out. It's definitely worth reading it with a cup of coffee or tea, with a beer, whatever you like. So the core idea is that you don't have to choose. You can go in multiple parts of your career, from the individual contributor to the manager as a pendulum. You can go back and forth. And this is going to strengthen you as a professional, because in some cases you will learn more skills. In some cases you will learn more things. So it's definitely not a unique choice. You can pick different things in different moments of your life. I know that we oh, by the way, I love that cat. I can see that someone has a cat. It's beautiful, by the way. Sweet. How does the promotion process work? Let's assume that you would like to become a tech lead. How does it usually work? Of course, it depends on your company, but generally speaking, we follow in this industry, in the IT industry, we follow the anti-Peter principle. So in order to be promoted, you need to demonstrate that you already have the skills and the competencies for the role that you would like to have. So just to give you an example, before I get promoted to the tech lead role, I've been an acting tech lead for 6 months or something around that, like 3 to 6 months, I don't remember. But I had to demonstrate to the company that I was ready for the role while working in that role. So the first thing that happens is that you do a self-review, like each 6 months, 1 year, depending on your company. You do a self-review, you do a peer review, so you get some of your peers doing your review. And then you also have a manager review. You get a manager feedback. Next thing that you will do, if you want to be promoted, is you will create a promotion package. A promotion package is basically just a document or a set of documents, which is going to highlight what you want to do, like what you did during the last months, how you think you can grow in the role. And then there's going to be a promotion evaluation with a promotion board. So the board is going to define, can you take the promotion or not? There are two outcomes usually. Either you get the promotion, you are happy, everyone is happy, or you get the feedback. And the feedback is going to be, you're not going to be promoted for these reasons. These are the things that you will need to work on for the next 6 months. Go work on them, and then you can come back. And hopefully you will be promoted. So this should happen. Either you get promoted or you get the feedback saying why you're not getting promoted right now. There is a beautiful document, a very useful document that you can write, that you can create, which is going to take you like 5 minutes per week. It's super helpful, which is the brag document or work log. You can call it in both ways. But basically, it's just a document. It can even be like a spreadsheet, whatever you prefer, where you just write, on this project, I had this goal, I bring those results. For example, I'm working on a backend. I created a feature which managed to reduce the latency from, I don't know, 200 milliseconds to 150, which saved on large-scale systems, saved a lot of time for the users, saved a lot of money, and you can quantify that. Or I implemented an airbag feature for our authentication system, you name it. So the goal of this document is to highlight very high level what is the impact that you had on the projects that you worked on, which is going to be super helpful when you have to create the brag document, because in the the promotion document, because then you will be asked to say, okay, what is the impact that you had so far? You can just go in the brag document and copy and paste and reformat stuff. So that's very helpful. It's a very nice investment. I don't know how much time we have, but if we got 5 minutes, I would like to give you a 5-step roadmap to become a tech lead, which worked quite well for me. So if it's fine, let's go through it like super quickly. So first of all, you self-assess. You understand where you are at the moment. So you try to understand, okay, that's where I am. That are the skills that I need to work on. And then you ask for feedback to your peers, to your manager, to other tech leads in your organization. So you can just say, okay, folks, that's me. What should I work on? And then you focus on the things that you have to work on. For example, I was missing some architecture. I was missing some knowledge of some infrastructure. So I worked on that and improved that. And now I basically can manage the full infrastructure autonomously on whatever project I go. So you have to work on one key skill per time. Then there is a trick, which is you can shadow people. So you can just reach out to your tech leads or your manager, and you can say, hey, I would like to become a tech lead at some point. Can you please just show me what you do entire day? Can I just be your shadow for a couple of days? And most probably people will say yes, for sure, why not? So you can listen how they speak differently to different people, because you remember we say that you will need to be able to bring the message to different stakeholders, which is a key skill in this role. And also you can just say, okay, man, I know that now that I did this shadow, I know that you have to create that report. I know that you have to do that task. Do you mind if I do it for you and you just review it for me? They would say, yes, of course, because people love when someone else can do their job and they can just review it, usually. So you will start to do the work of a tech lead while shadowing, which has been like super helpful, at least for me. Next one, lead small. So you don't need to become a tech lead and own the entire system. You can own a slice. So you can say, okay, folks, I know that in this sprint we are gonna do this feature. Do you mind if I do like the mini tech lead for that feature? Do you mind if I lead the entire feature from end to end? So you can start from a feature or even from a spike, whatever works for you. You can help people during the onboarding or the offboarding. You can help people where they struggle. Or if you want, you can also do a small tech talk, because communication and doing presentation is a big part of our job, right? Like this presentation is part of my job usually. So you can start small and do a very narrow tech presentation to other colleagues or to other people. This is going to improve a lot your presentation skills over time, of course. Next one, communicate like a tech lead. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Communication is a huge part of our job. So you can communicate like one. Write weekly updates about what you are working on, about what your team is working on. Speak up in the sprint planning in the retros. Every time something is not clear, you can just raise your hand and say, I didn't get it. Do you mind if I try to clarify it better? Or you can try to help others by, for example, summarizing complex discussions in channels like Slack. You know, when you have like a thread with 60 messages, which is becoming huge, you can just do a favor to everyone, creating a TLDR for everyone. Next one, create allies over time, because at some point someone will judge you and they will ask feedback to your peers. So they will ask to your peers, hey, is this person valuable? Do you think we should promote them, this person? And if you have lies, they will say, yes, of course, this person is perfect for the role. So you can set up regular one-on-ones, either with your manager and with other colleagues. You can share praise for others. So when someone helps you, just say, hey, thanks a lot for helping me, but not just say that in private, say that in public. Say, hey, folks, I managed to fix this issue. Thanks a lot to Mark. He helped me. He made my day. And yeah, keep learning. That's a huge part of the process. Listen to podcasts, block like 6 minutes, a couple of hours per week to stay focused on learning time, and then try to apply everything that you learn. You can see, I will mention you a few books, but you can see these books as instructions to become tech lead. And therefore, everything that you find in those books, you can try to apply that. I want to leave you with a few books that I personally enjoyed quite a bit, because I'm a book guy. I love them. So first of all, Team Topologies. Then there is the Manager's Path and the Staff Engineer's Path. You can read them in tandem. They are beautiful, and they're going to help you quite a bit if you want to pursue this journey. Next one, Managing Humans, which, as you may guess, it's about management. Radical Candor, which I'm finding super helpful these days, because I'm in a bit of a complex situation at work with a lot of stakeholders, a lot of competing priorities. So I'm finding this book quite helpful. So basically, this book is going to tell you how, when, and to who say no, and how to manage conflict, these kind of things. Super helpful. Last but not least, the Culture Map. So this book contains a lot of advice about how to deal with different cultures. So I work in a team of 40 people, or something around 40 people, and we are from like 15 countries. Therefore, we have different cultures. And if you know how to deal with people with different cultures, it's way, way easier. It makes your job way easier. So that being said, I know that I bit over time, and I'm sorry about that, but I just want to say, hey, you remember Bob? Hopefully, after this around 40 minutes, now Bob knows how to cross and how to become a tech lead. And now Bob knows how to build a bridge to become a tech lead. So I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for listening. And in case there are questions in the chat, I'm super happy to answer. Yeah, there we go. I think I can remove the screen share. I see a couple of questions. So I'm not sure, do we have a couple of minutes to answer the questions, or shall we move on?
Yeah, I think we have not a lot of questions, and partially you already answered that in your talk. I mean, even me was dropping the question that what tech lead have to sacrifice in comparison to being senior developer and stuff like that, but it was already covered. I think maybe the question from Anastasia, you can answer that. What advice would you give to the developers who do not want to go into tech leadership and just want to keep coding?
Yeah. So maybe it's easier for people with leadership potential to say it's just a skill you can learn, just do it. Yeah, actually, I strongly believe that the individual contributor path nowadays it's becoming super important. So if there is someone, if there is a developer that doesn't want to go into the tech lead, into the leadership track, and wants to keep coding, the advice is just do it, because in the right context, you can still grow quite a lot. And it started with US companies that you had this, staff engineer, principal engineer, fellow, whatever, all these roles in the IC path. But now also in European companies, we have these roles in a lot of European companies, because we are understanding as an industry that a manager, a skilled manager, is not more valuable than a skilled individual contributor. So you can choose what you prefer. And then there is another question. Would you think there are people who are not meant for leadership, and what kind of career path can they follow instead? I don't think, to be fair, that there are people that are not meant for leadership. I think it's a skill that you can learn if you want, of course. It's like communications, what we call soft skills. I think we should call them human skills, and they are learnable as everything. Leadership itself is something that you can learn, and also I can tell that leadership is not just for managers. So all the strongest individual contributors that I know are leaders, and they do a lot of leadership. They actually, leadership is one of their strongest skills, even if they are still coding, even if they are individual contributors. Because the more senior you grow, doesn't matter where you are on the IC path or on the management path, you're still becoming a leader. So I hope that this answered Anastasia's question.
Yeah, thank you. I wonder how soon we will get the new role, which will be something like AI tech lead, and you will lead a couple of AI agents at the same time. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Alfonso, again. And it's time to move on to our last but not least speaker. It's Yauheni Prakopchyk. Yauheni is our CTO at Epicmax. He's also a Vuestic UI and Vuestic admin tech lead, open source developers, public speaker, and just a nice guy. So nice to see you, Yauheni, and passing the mic to you.
Yep. Hello, everyone. And today my talk is the last one, so I thought I'd make it a bit lighthearted, a bit not as info dump, but we'll see how it goes. I will snatch a screen. Okay, and can you see it?
Yep, all good.
Okay, great. So, hello everyone again, and today my talk is about Granular update to Vue 3 for big projects. And maybe you already know me, but just for whoever doesn't know, I have some experience in front-end development. I jumped a lot through different projects, so I generally like lead a lot of projects at the same time, something like that. So I have a lot of different project experience, which is pretty uncommon, I think. I also CTO at Epicmax, and we are a company that's very focused on Vue, and current talk is also, it's very focused and also on Vue. So I'm also a creator and lead developer on Vuestic UI and Vuestic admin, and I have also extensive experience transitioning Vue 2 projects. I think we had like 5 or so, and maybe more, and some consulting on that as well. So agenda of current talk. So first I will have some kind of background for you to just showcase what kind of transition approaches we have for moving from Vue 2 to Vue 3. Second would be a bit of a demo project with module federation approach, which is approach I'm currently showcasing. Two other approaches are very, very common. There is nothing fun about them, so I'll focus on the funnest one. And third part is I will focus on some edge cases with this approach and know where it's applicable, where it's not, and which parts I didn't test at all. And my idea is that by the end of this talk, you'll have a bit of a powerful tool for your project transitioning, and it is applied for Vue 3, Vue 2 transition, but actually it is actually universal. So you can use it for different types of technologies, different types of transition. Maybe you want to transition like from Vue to React, or partially from Vue to React, or maybe you want to transition to some different library. Up to you. It works kind of everywhere. So let's get to the talk. So my talk might be important for you if you are still in need for Vue 3 transition, or your project is too big to transition in one go, or you want to reduce general transition downsides for other technologies. So let's just list approaches we have. So first approach is single-step transition, where you would just transition the whole application in one go. And yeah, you will just grab all the downsides and issues with this approach as you go. Second would be a transition with iframes, and third is about module federation CSS scoping, which I think might be very much superior in a lot of cases. So let's start with first one, single-step transition. At point 1, you have full app on Vue 2. On point 2, you have app in Vue 3. So very straightforward. What's bad about it? It takes a while, so you have to just maybe delegate like a year or maybe half a year, depending on the size of the project, maybe a couple of years even, again, depending on the size of the team and the effort you can allocate to that, which might not be very applicable for your business. It also has to be fully completed. You can stop in the middle and be like, okay, we are good for now. We don't focus on transition. We are focusing on business goals. Just won't work. It's also a bit tough for QA because with other approaches that are more gradual, you can like separate QA in parts. Here, it will be like fully on QA once it's up on staging, which is soul crushing. So. And the benefit is that it's very focused development work. You're not spending time on anything. You're not struggling with merging different stuff. You have no ability to introduce new bugs. So yeah, it's very good for a developer. We'll say a bit alone because you don't actually interact with the actual application for now. It also has no impact on end users. So no scary times. I think it's good to use when performance is paramount because it has like zero impact on performance. You have good performance before, you have good performance after, completely good here. And you don't need incremental upgrades. And this could be for a number of reasons. Maybe your application is small. Maybe you can just spend a lot of time on application. So second approach is maybe you know about it already, is gradual transition with iframes. The idea is that you start with Vue 2 application as before, but then you separate part of your application into an iframe, and you arrange this application in a way so that you have a proper communication between them. So just moving part of the application in iframe won't work. You have to make it one application. And then you would do it to some other part, and then next and next part, until you arrive at the point where you have a lot of iframes, and you can just convert the whole application into Vue 3 because most of the parts are actually already on Vue 3. So yeah, sounds good on paper. Maybe there are some issues. So first issue with iframes is there is a big performance overhead, actually. And this, we had reports from our users. This is visible for people. Iframes were getting like faster. Recently, it's still visible. So second is that you have to provide this kind of communication between iframes. They do not work out of the box, and it's pretty tricky to do. And third part is cost issues. Again, if you work with iframes, you know that. If you don't, you can try and you know about what I'm talking about. So applications could be developed in different subdomains, and these do not talk very well with each other. So expect some issues with the course. What is good? Small incremental upgrades, as small as you want to be. And you have zero possibility of any CSS or JavaScript conflict because you can think about iframe as like mini instance of your tab. It doesn't know about external tab at all unless you make it to. So that's good. When can you use it? So when it's very important for you to avoid regressions, because it is a good protection for regressions and having benefits of granular upgrades. And performance is far from your primary concern. So maybe you have some like old admin app you want to modernize, and yeah, this is a way to go maybe. And second one is third one, sorry, is about model federation, and this is an approach I'll be currently diving more into with details. We will start with a Vue 2 application as before, but we will do something a bit trickier right now. So we will transform. We will use a Vue 3 application for our parent, for our root, and then we would add Vue 2 pages or some modules you have as remotes. And then we would transform these remotes, move these to a Vue 3 application one by one. And as a result, you would have a Vue 3 application fully converted. And here, again, there are some downsides. And the main downside is that I actually talked with some people who did this approach, and it worked for them perfectly. So I'm less scared right now, but it is a bit experimental. And if you try to Google this approach on the internet, you will be like 0 links. There is no information you can easily access. So it works, but it's scary. There is also some potential for conflicts, because the way module federation works is that you will have Vue 2 and Vue 3 application running at the same time, and your CSS would be also running at the same time in the same environment. So if there is possibility for conflict, it will flourish. So you can get some. What is good about it? So again, it allows incremental upgrades, and performance is way better than with iframes, like way better. Not noticeable. When can you use it? So performance matters, but doesn't have to be perfect. And that's about it. So now we can switch to project. I have a QR code if you want to follow me. I won't do live coding. I will just quickly go through main ideas of application. But yeah. So we will start from a Vue CLI project. As you might have, like if you do a project on Vue 2 and you plan transition, you might have something like that. So you might have a Bootstrap CSS, maybe Vue CLI, Webpack. You might have Vue 2.6 if you didn't upgrade. And you might have Vue Router 3, again, like Vue 2 specific. And the first thing I think is great to do for this project. Oh, actually, we have an image of this project. As you can see, it is crazy complicated, but I think we can manage transition. So first step would be we can move stuff we can move on Vue 2. So like a preparation step. We would move to Vite. We would move to Viewpoint 2.7, which kind of supports everything. Vue 2.6 is a bit outdated already. And everything you want to refactor, you can refactor. After that, we need to create some kind of separation between two projects. I chose a monorepo project, but you can use also different repository for Vue 2 project and Vue 3 project, up to you, works both ways. So I created an empty Vue 3 project within monorepo with Tailwind CSS and Vite. So its structure looks like this. So we have a Vue 3 project. And now we can set up a module federation. So for module federation, there are two concepts, host and remote. Host is basically like the application that consumes the packages, that loads remotes, and you can also do it in runtime. And remote is like a child application that you would consume again. Works very similar to how you use NPM packages, but there are some differences. So let's see how it looks on code. In root, we would add Vite plugin federation dependency. And in remote, we would configure remote within Vite config file. And we also need to provide, so the way you think about it is you need to provide all exports, everything you would need for a root application to make a call for a Vue2 application. So in my case, I need a create Vue2 application. It is similar to what you would have in main.js file for Vue2 application. And then we also expose some parts that are needed for Vue 3 application to function. So if there are some handlers, like if you need some pass some reactive states, maybe you have some handlers, maybe you need to pass some routes, you also like prepare a bundle and it will be imported in a root application. And we also need to configure host, and it is pretty similar. As you see, remote would be running on different domain, maybe subdomain, and we would again like use it like this. And as import, you will use host app, and it will return this JavaScript file. And here you can see that we are using remote app main federation.js, and this would pretty much load this function with Vue2 encapsulated in it. And on Vue 3 app, only thing we need to do is mount it to a div, similarly how you would do with another application. And this is already in Vue 3 context. So, and yeah, it will work. If you run an application, it will work fine. So within Vue 3 application, you would have a page with Vue2. Another tricky part about this is that you also have to configure router. And the way I configured router is that Vue allows you to have two ways of router config. One is router history. And what it does is that it syncs with URL. And another mode is router memory. And in this mode, it doesn't sync with URL at all. It is like safe content thing. You can use functions to modify it, but like current router state, current route. But apart from that, it ignores URL. And this is important for us because if two router instances are bound to URL, bad stuff happens, and we need to sync them manually. So, and this functionality, this code is pretty much doing the thing, the sync. It will on mounted run the sync, and it will check if some routes are changing, and it will update the router instance. Another issue with this approach is that you need some kind of CSS scoping because Vue2 CSS would by default conflict with Vue 3 application. So to implement that, we need to have a prefix for our Bootstrap code. And we can achieve that with CSS scoping with auto prefixer. And this is a config. Sure if we want to get there, but the idea, yeah, is we will just go through all the rules that are generated for Bootstrap, and we will kind of add this prefix there because, and it will be applied, it will be scoped to our Vue2 application, and will never apply to anything within the root scope. Now we can migrate pages one by one, and after we're done, we will have a happy, or creepy, emoji is a bit creepy, Vue 3 application. Right. Okay, now last stuff is edge cases. These are a bit fun. So one problem with this approach is that you will have very limited access to DevTools. You can run DevTools in your Vue2 application or in your Vue 3 application, but in federated application, you wouldn't access like Vue2 tools. Like DevTools are not advanced enough to have two versions of Vue on the same page. You would also need to support two builds for Vue2 application. So you would need to build remote.js. You cannot like run just dev server and expect it to magically appear. You don't have reactivity as a developer. You would have to pre-build it, and then it's imported to the application. So it's a bit harder to work as a developer. You also have a small performance decrease just from the fact that you have 2 sets of JavaScript, 2 sets of CSS, and a bit of interaction. But that's it pretty much. Okay, give me a second. Okay, so there is a bit of a topic because we also want maybe to reuse some things between hot and remote. We want to sync some data. Maybe we want to sync some functions, and then analyze what you can sync. The easiest part is utility functions. So similarly to what we did with roads, you can attach them to a Vue2 application and make them available everywhere, and for root as well. No issues at all. Same with API handling, as with utility functions that could be considered as a separate library of sorts. And again, you can attach it, and API calls could be shared. What is more problematic is reactive objects. You have to do some syncing between applications because Vue supports Vue2 and Vue3 have different versions of reactivity. And this thing I think is a bit hard to sync is store. Probably doable, but I don't recommend it. It seems crazy to me. We had some issues with reactivity with store just on Vue 1, on one version of Vue, but with 2 versions, it's I think it would be even more crazy. So I don't recommend it. So another issue is that CSS scoping is not perfect. It works one way, so you can encapsulate your remote application. You can say, okay, Bootstrap, please apply only to this remote. That works fine. But when you go different directions, like if your root application is like on Tailwind, and you want to say, root application, please apply Tailwind, please don't apply Tailwind to my remotes, and the root application will tell you no. So it will do some conflicts here, and I don't have a good way to avoid that. There is a thing called scope at row, but it's not well supported, not fully supported in browsers. Maybe that could be a solution for this CSS scoping, because it allows us to like define limits of applicability for CSS, but I didn't try it yet. Maybe it's also not such a big of an issue. And that's about it. So again, this approach is applicable for different technologies apart from Vue. It's pretty straightforward. It allows you to like grab some JavaScript from another project and attach it to a current project as a library, and it kind of magically works. And that's it from my side. And if you have some questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Well, what I want is to wish to everyone, if you guys face the transition project, it will go smoothly with no problems. Thanks to Yauheni, we already know the way how to do that.
Yeah, it could smoothen things a bit, I think. Also, if you have some questions about Vue transition in general, I will be more than happy to answer in LinkedIn or whatever place.
Yeah. So thank you, Yauheni. That was a great speech, and I think this information will help someone who will want to make those kind of transitions. So great. Thank you again. And in case we don't have any questions in the chat, let me check them really quick. I would like to say thank you everyone for participating in our call. If you wanna be our speaker there, I'll just quickly drop the link for the form you have to fill, and you're more than welcome to talk on our scene. So thank you everyone, guys, and see you on our next talk in the next month. It will be already Vue.js Talks number 12. So thanks again, and see you later. Bye, guys.